Okay, hello everybody. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Monday, the 22nd of November, 2021. Before I get into today's presentation, let me just note, click on the notification bell in the upper right and in the subscription button below the YouTube screen here to subscribe and be notified of future episodes. Before I get into today's topic, I want to point out that my last video was Robert E. Lee and Ty Sedgley, which is a 7-minute video professionally produced, which is a rebuttal to the Robert E. Lee and Me book by Ty Sedgley, which is essentially a character assassination of Robert E. Lee. So I urge you to go back and get my last video, Robert E. Lee and Ty Sedgley, and please distribute it as far and as wide as you can. The message is important. I produced that video because the administrators at Washington and Lee University want to take the Lee name out of the school. That is a fight worth fighting, keeping it there. That video, I think, can help because it says it counters, it rebuts all the arguments that Washington Lee as a school, as the administrators will not permit to be discussed with their students and with their trustees. There's an alumni group that has put together presentations by a couple of retired professors. The Washington Lee administration has refused to allow them to present their side of the story, even though they've let guys like Ty Sedgley's make character assassinations of Robert E. Lee, a man who cannot be here to defend himself. The administration at Washington and Lee will not let anyone defend him. This is a battle worth fighting for. All right, so remember that one. Robert E. Lee and Ty Sedgley. That was my last video. It's professionally produced. Please get it from YouTube. Distribute it far and wide. Okay, today's topic is what about Leland Stanford? So let me pull up my notes here. The proper name of Stanford University is Stanford Junior University because it is named for Leland Stanford Sr.'s only child who died in adolescence. To be sure, the school's original funding was provided by Leland Sr., who was a California governor, railroad mogul, who eventually died in 1893 when representing the state in the U.S. Senate. He was also a racist and a vigorous opponent of foreign immigration. Consider Stanford's Sr.'s remarks in his acceptance speech as a Republican Party gubernatorial candidate in California in 1859. These, quote, "The cause in which we are engaged is one of the greatest in which any can labor. It is the cause of the white man. I am in favor of free white American citizens. I prefer free white citizens to any other race. I prefer the white man to the negro as an inhabitant to our country. I believe it is the greatest good. I believe its greatest good has been derived by having all of the country settled by free white men." Viewers who might try to excuse Stanford's by questioning whether he was speaking sincerely or instead of as like a politician who can be often insincere, those viewers should note that the nominee's opinions were expressed impromptu, offhand, because he added, quote, "I have not prepared any speech. I come here tonight without having framed in my own mind what I should say," close quote. Those spontaneous words were spoken by a man who nearly always spoke publicly from a prepared text. Indeed, he was even accused of being a boring speaker because he read his speeches aloud. Later, when speaking about Chinese Americans as governor, Leland Stanford Sr. said, quote, "The presence of numbers of that degraded people would exercise a deleterious effect upon the superior white race. To my mind, it is clear that Chinese American settlement among us is to be discouraged by every legitimate means. Large numbers are already here, and unless we do something early to check their immigration, the question, which of the two tides of immigration meeting upon the shores of the Pacific, meaning the Euro-American immigrants or the Asian immigrants, which of those two tides shall be turned back, will be forced upon our consideration when far more difficult than now of disposal. He is basically saying that it would be hard to get rid of the Chinese if they became a larger share of California's population. Stanford's chief reason for supporting the Republican Party on the eve of the Civil War was its support for a northern route transcontinental railroad for which Stanford's Central Pacific would become the prime beneficiary. The nominee clarified in the same acceptance speech, quote, "We are in favor of the Northern Route Transcontinental Railroad. I am in favor of the railroad, and it is the policy of this state to favor that party which is likely to advance their interests," close quote. Even though a northern route would be more expensive than a southern one, since it would need to cross the Sierra Nevada mountains, Stanford's choice was motivated by the fact that he lived in Sacramento, not Southern California, and notwithstanding the Sierra route would require extensive and costly tunneling. Economy of taxpayer-funded public work spending was secondary to Stanford's personal prosperity, even at the cost of many Chinese worker lives in blasting and construction accidents while building the Central Pacific Railroad. Stanford also had little regard for blacks. About a month before President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in September 1862, Stanford wrote, quote, "The Republican Party earlier appreciated the real character of the political issues before the American people. Slavery was not the real issue. Our cause is the maintenance of the Union," close quote. He realized that an intact Union increased the value and economic feasibility of a transcontinental railroad. Now, to be sure, Stanford commented at least once that he was an quote, "uncompromising," close quote, opponent of slavery. However, that specific remark predated by several months the one in which he said, quote, "Slavery was not the real issue," close quote, of the war. If, however, contemporary academic historians permit Stanford to salvage his reputation and legacy by changing his mind over slavery, they can only inconsistently deny the same privilege to Confederate President Jefferson Davis. In July 1864, the year before the surrender at Appomattox in April 1865, in July 1864, Davis told Northern Peace Commissioners, quote, "We are not fighting for slavery. We are fighting for independence," close quote. Finally, if Stanford's racism is an insufficient reason to justify reevaluating his historical status, modern historians may wish to investigate the corruption and bribery that enabled him and his three partners to advance the interests of the Central and Southern Pacific Railroads. According to an earlier era historian, Matthew Josephson, for example, Stanford and his three partners pocketed $36 million in excess profits from their taxpayer-funded construction company that built the Central Pacific Railroad. When federal investigators finally asked to look at the accounting books in 1873, one of Leland's partners told them the books had been burned. since the railroad had been completed 4 years earlier in 1869. We destroyed the books. But that's another story, and a good one. While Stanford University is the namesake of his son, Leland Sr.'s body is entombed in an on-campus mausoleum, and the university's memorial church is named for him. If today's Californians truly value the lives and dignity of non-Anglo-Saxon American immigrants, or immigrants into America with non-Anglo-Saxon heritage, well, then these Californians, they might wish to scrub Leland Sr.'s name from all memorials in the state. That is, if they are truthful in their opinions and their alleged concern over racism and the dignity of non-Anglo-Saxon immigrants. Let California demonstrate their sincerity on this by taking the name Stanford off of every memorial in the state. Then let them come and talk about what should be done in the South with Confederate statues. Well, as John Wayne once said famously, in what movie was it? I can't remember, one of them. That'll be the day. And that's where Buddy Holly got the expression, which he used for his song, That'll Be the Day. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you next time.